Good morning. Please can we elect a chair in line with the rules agreed by Licensing and Safety Committee?
Thank you. Clerk, nominate Councillor Hazel Brown for the chair.
And I second that nomination.
Thank you, everybody. Can I ask people to do the introductions, and then I'll just run through the way we want to conduct this morning.
Councillor Mark Jones.
Councillor Barry Kemp.
Birgit. No, it's green. Sorry about that. Birgit Wagner on behalf of myself and my fiancé Michael King from 122A Maidstone Road.
Sorry about that. Jill Sherratt from Licensing Matters. I'm here to represent the applicant.
Carl Theben, people Chandran, I'm the applicant. You could refer to me as Theben. You could refer to me as Theben for short. Thank you.
Katie Honeywood, Licensing Officer.
Thank you, Krishna, and Legal Advisor.
Nicola Couchman, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, everybody. Before we move on to this particular case, we had... Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I beg your pardon, sorry. Do we have any apologies for absence? I don't have any. Do we have any disclosable pecuniary or other disclosable interests? No. Yeah. Councillor Hackwell-Swat. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. Does the meeting agree that I can sign the minutes of the meeting of the licence and hearing of the 16th of January outside of this meeting?
Agreed.
Thank you. We have a second case this morning regarding Medway Rugby Football Club. And I want to ask the panel, do you agree with the prior approval of the interested parties to adjourn the meeting until a later date, 14th of March, to allow all parties to attend?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Clerk, you record that for us. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending this morning's meeting. Yeah. Can we formally allow the fourth member to leave the room? Thank you, Councillor, for attending this morning.
Thank you.
We're going to open the meeting regarding the substantive matter this morning with the licensing officer outlining the application, and then the applicant or the representative can speak in support of the application, and then the objectors can ask the applicant or the representative and witnesses questions, and then we can ask some questions of the applicant, and then the objectors speak about their objections and call any witnesses. The applicant asks the objectors their questions, and then we ask questions as a panel, and then everybody is asked if they have a final question to ask. But I would suggest that it's normal that People speak for about 10 minutes at maximum on either the application or the objections, because there's time to come back on it. But if I could ask Katie to outline the application first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. On the 23rd of November 2023, we received a new premises licence application for Kinnear Medway, 120 Maidstone Road, Rochester. We have received 12 public representations. These can be found at Appendix B. The police put forward conditions on the 29th of November 2023, which the applicant has agreed to be added to their operating schedule. This can be found at Appendix C. On the 20th of December 2023, a petition of support was submitted. This can be found at Appendix D. This has now come to a hearing for the licensing panel to make a decision on the outcome of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Now, if the applicant or your representatives wish to speak in support of the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Jill from Licensing Matters, and this is VPAN, the applicant, and I am here to make the application for sales of alcohol off the premises and opening times between 8 and 11, Monday to Sunday. I'm going to give you a bit of background, tell you about the things you need to know, the relevant policies and procedures, and I'll address the representations very briefly. I'll start by saying you have before you no average applicant. VPAN brings with him a significant depth of experience, and we're hoping that it will put the minds at rest of the residents once they know a little bit about him. He worked as store managers at Tesco for 14 years. And as you would expect, that brought with him not just responsibility for the knowledge of alcohol laws, but everything, health and safety, fire safety, all of the staff, and all of the regulation and auditing that it brought with it. And in fact, towards the end of his tenure with Tesco, he became a troubleshooter where they sent him in to sort out failing stores. He had to bring them up to speed. So his knowledge and experience over 14 years are comprehensive at every level. That is his bedrock, and following on from that and actually overlapping, he also then started to buy his own premises. He's had a variety of premises in terms of hours and locations. So he's had a petrol station in West Wickham in Beckenham for 3 years that had a 24-hour licence. He's had a convenience store in Sutton, and he describes that as the one that is most similar to this particular location. That's a convenience store on a high street in a residential area that had a 24-hour licence that he obtained himself. He had a premier convenience store in Herne Bay in a challenging area for 2 years. Those are all historical, but he still does have another premises in Croydon that he purchased last April that has hours of 8 in the morning till 2 a.m. He's never had any problems throughout the whole of this time, and in particular owning his own premises in more challenging locations than this one. He's been responsibly retailing alcohol for much longer hours than what he's applying for today. He had a recent visit at Croydon, in fact, which was all in order, a licensing visit. So he's not got a blot on his record, essentially. It's a very, very safe pair of hands. And he has, as a result of his history, has a very, very high standard of operating in terms of his policies, procedures. And that is reflected in his choice of partner. So this particular premises will be a premier store, which is, I think you might well know, is Booker, that is also owned by Tesco. Booker is the wholesaler, but the whole company is owned by Tesco. So by partnering with Premier, the level of professional, again, you're not just dealing with VPAN, you're dealing with all of the background support structures. He gets a whole host of support systems. The integrated till system, which is essentially a computer which documents everything, the deliveries, the orders, the refusals register, it's got till prompts, it's all integrated. They will come in and they've already supplied the floor plan, they will look after the layout. They're actually having what they call as a beer store in the shop, so it's a separate room with its separate door with alcohol. If you want to ask about that, then please do. That all comes from Booker. Now, in terms of what he also gets from by partnering with Booker Tesco are the offers and promotions. I want to address the suggestion that there will be low priced or cheap alcohol. That is not true. The alcohol is all sold at your usual supermarket prices because he will be contracted to buy from Booker Premier, so he has to have them at the same prices, the standard prices as everyone else. So there will be no cheap alcohol sold. I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding there. He's investing 40 to 50,000 in what is currently an empty premises. It'll be a convenience store, obviously selling every manner of product, toiletries, fresh food, the ability to pay bills, send parcels, and they will have fresh food offering by way of country choice, so hot food, daily food. So alcohol is only part of the general offering. It's a minor part. It's not the focus of this business. So in terms of equipment, I've already mentioned the till prompts, but the CCTV, and you'll see there's a comprehensive police CCTV condition that's been agreed. In fact, the police conditions that are all agreed were a no-brainer for THEPAN because they just reflect all of his policies and procedures in any event. So the CCTV, as an example, will be 24 cameras, both inside and out. He'll have 2 cameras outside. It'll be remote viewing. The police will be able to come and access it at any time, so it's a real asset to the area. In terms of staffing, he will be he's named as the DPS. He'll be there full time, all of the time, managing. He'll have 13 staff. He's started his recruitment process, and his hierarchy will essentially be himself, then a trusted manager. If he is not there, he will then have all the other staff that will be fully trained. And again, there is a condition formalising the training processes. But I'm sure from what I've said, you'll realise that he's fully au fait with exactly what's required in terms of ensuring that all the staff know what they're doing. So in terms of the hours, he's asked for 8 till 11, perfectly standard for this type of business. He's not asking for anything, but as you've already heard, he's quite capable of managing 24-hour businesses, so it's a lot less than that. And again, to refer to a suggestion made from some of the residents that the hours should be curtailed, well, I don't see where there's any justification for that. In fact, Spa might close at 10, but they have a licence till 11, I think I'm right in saying. They have a licence, not that it matters, because we're taking this case on its merits, but to demonstrate the point, just because the residents have raised it, Spa has a licence also for 11 o'clock. So that's the application. Just to refer to the consultation, you've already heard, and I know you'll have in front of you the police conditions. That formalises the good practice that you would expect, and then the other 9 authorities have not raised any objections. So the police, in their capacity as your advisors in terms of antisocial behaviour, crime and those kind of issues, the police say to you that this application upholds the licensing objectives for the hours that are applied for. In terms of the residents, obviously they're here to speak for themselves. They're raising generalised issues. Apparently, it's okay for Spa to sell alcohol. They do it okay on the whole. They're quite happy with Spa, but they don't want a newcomer. Like I said before, I hope that and ask as many questions as you like. I hope you do. Once the residents have seen who they've got coming into their area and the level of knowledge and responsibility, they perhaps will have their fears allayed somewhat, but healthy competition at the end of the day is what this is about, and this store is going to be a massive asset to the area. I want to just finally suggest again the suggestions from residents that there should be a limit on single cans and high-strength ABV. I don't know where the residents get that from. That is only really a request that would ever come from the police. And they're not asking for it. That is not something that we would accept. There's no justification for it. There's no those conditions come from there being evidenced problems in an area with street drinkers. That's specifically what they are there to address. There is no problem with street drinking. In fact, the gentleman who's made an objection, who lives above the Spa, says that there is no problems in his representation. So there can be no justification for any limit on this licence. And again, Spa, I think, only has about 4 conditions on its licence, doesn't have these restrictions on it. So again, I would ask you to dismiss those requests out of hand. So That's all I've got to say. I hope I did that in 10 minutes. It's a very robust application with nothing aggravating, certainly from my point of view, that would give cause for concern. Obviously, once you've assessed it all, and I would invite you to ask as many questions as you can to Thepan. He'll answer anything that you've got at all. So that's the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if you'd like to ask some questions of the applicant, it's up to the objectors to ask their questions now. If you've got questions for the applicant, you can ask them now.
I have actually no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Will I have a chance to represent my objection?
Yes.
Is this the right time now?
No, we ask questions of the applicant first of all. 'Cause
That's
it
fine,
might-
thank
That
you,
might
yeah.
frame some of your questions
Thank you.
anyway. Thank you. Can I ask colleagues if they've got questions for the applicant? They ask them now, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just one question. And you mentioned the Premier Link. Do they not have a policy that you don't sell strong alcohol?
No, not across the board. It's on a case-by-case basis. So if I work with Premier across the board nationally.
Yeah.
So if we have, it depends on the area, and depends on if there's got to be evidence of some kind of problems to restrict the high-strength beer and cider as single cans, which is what I think you're referring to.
Yeah.
And then we would look at that, we would talk to the police, and then a condition might go on. But no, they do stock them. They stock all sorts of products.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is part of the range.
Okay, thank you.
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions. They're actually for the applicant, if that's all right. Thank you for attending this morning. I know Premier aren't asking for any restrictions like single cans and the restriction to low alcohol. Given that you're going to be in a residential area and people are looking for some assurance, and the thing is, the shop is vacant at the moment, so people will always have concerns about something that they don't know about. You probably notice that from. And I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts about what you might want to do to come some of the road towards the objectors' feelings?
Sorry. So literally, with Premier coming in, they will do the whole data analysis with all their stores in Bookers, and then they'll give us a set planograms. But then as an individual for that location, I have to make the decision what is relevant for that community. And as I say, I'm not going to be selling strong beers. There will be some popular beers like Tennent's or K-ciders where, I mean, in my current store, I do have ranges of strong beers, but I sort of look at what is relevant for the community and what is sort of not really needed. So I have picked and choose and kept to the minimal. And at this location, I'll be doing the same. I'll be looking at the whole sort of transition into the business, and then based on that, I'll be deciding what is going to stay and what is not. But because of the range come from Booker, I cannot say this is not going to come in straight away. But down the line, yes, I'll be sort of looking at each items and sort of eliminating what is not needed in there. And probably I might not be even selling any, down the line if it's not relevant. But until I sort of go in, start looking at the sort of business, then I can't make a sudden decision, because it's with their planogram, with Premier bringing me the data from sort of the whole area, what is everybody's doing within Premier and Booker, and they give me the range, this is what you're going to be launched, and that's how I go about. And down the line, it sort of changes slowly. So I hope that answers your question.
I'd just like to talk about, your representative has suggested that you would not want to have a condition about single cans. There seems to be a concern based upon the fact that we're very near to some schools and some community assets like clubs and things. Have you considered the possibility around that?
Can I answer this just from a legal point of view? Schools, you know, convenience stores and schools are side by side everywhere. And the issue of children and single cans is not relevant because he's going to be selling the what are known as Alka-Pops. He's going to be selling Bacardi Breezer. He's going to be selling all those other single items. We've got to look with the single. I don't know where this has come from the residents, because single cans and a restriction on single cans is specifically in relation to street drinkers and people who are outside shops hanging around and drinking. That's what it's there for. It's not relevant to children. It's not relevant in any other way, because if you think about a convenience store, they sell loads of single products. And the other thing is, nowadays, if you think about the rows of the beers and the ciders in Tesco, they're all single products now. Brewdog, you know, Henry Westons. I could come up with millions of examples of the products that are singles. So retailers have to sell the singles. It's the way that it is. And unless there is any evidence of street drinking specifically, then there can't be any justification for a restriction on single cans.
I accept that it's not in a SIPI area. My question originally was just around providing comfort, and I do accept that you've given me a legal response. Okay.
Yeah, Chair, just on that, because I did also want to say, look, we're here to deal with what will go on the licence specifically, but work can take place outside of the licence as well. And if the residents want to speak to Theepan once, hopefully we're out of here and he starts preparing things, the chances are he might not sell many products above those or single cans, and he can speak to them, and if they want to say, look, would you not sell that because I've seen this, then he can work with them, no problem, outside of this arena. Absolutely no problem.
Thank you. I move now to the objectors can speak to the representatives and you can speak about your representation now.
Good. I was informed that I can't mention anything that is outside my objection that we have written, so I will simply read out the letter of objection that I sent on 10th of December to the licensing office as it is, and it was written by myself and my fiancé, Michael King. As you can see from our address above, which is 122A Maidstone Road, we are neighbors of the shop for which you have an application for the sale of alcohol. We are also homeowners and have lived here since 2001. There are several reasons for objecting to this application. A shop selling cheap, strong alcohol next to our property might be very bad news. Apart from strong liquor, these types of shops sell beer in single cans that are favored by youngsters and alcoholics with little money. In addition, we imagine that the new shop may offer alcohol cheaply initially to attract business and turn customers into regulars. In comparison, this bar shop only sells beer in packs of 4 that is not necessarily affordable for drinkers with little money. In addition, drinkers of a single can of beer often drink it on the spot, and one drinker easily attracts more, leading to a group of drinkers which could be right outside our front door. This is an unsettling thought, and we do not want that to happen. There is a small alleyway between our property and number 120 with an open gate facing the pavement. In the past, we occasionally had antisocial behavior right by our door, including urinating, as this is a sheltered space. With alcohol being sold and no public toilets nearby, the probability for that to happen would increase by a great deal. We do not want that to happen. We also want you to know that there has been regular antisocial behavior from unknown youngsters in the graveyard opposite our property on various nights right into the small hours in the summer for many years. Usually, the rowdiness involves alcohol. We fear that another shop, apart from the spa, selling alcohol could attract even more of this antisocial behavior, and we do not want that to happen. There is another reason for our objection. The spa shop is open until 10 p.m. Understandably, there is regular extra traffic until shop closing time. Another shop with late opening hours could double that noise. We are aware that once the license would be granted, the business selling alcohol could even extend their opening hours. We do not want extra traffic and commotion until very late at night, as it would naturally reduce our quality of life. Currently, drunkards are already leaving enough rubbish, cans and bottles in the road, which can rattle all night on the pavements. Regularly, people park up with loud music in their cars, some of them drinking at any time of night. This makes it worse and would seriously impact on our citizens' rights for a normal life. For all these reasons, we would like you to refuse this application. If you lived at our address, I am certain you may object to it too. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Sorry, do you have any witnesses that you wanted to call?
No, I have no witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's now down to the applicant or the representative to ask the objectors questions, if you wish.
No, I've no questions, Chair.
Thank you. Has anybody on the panel got any questions for the objectors?
None from me, Chair.
Just one from me. You seem to think that the increase, because you're going to have another outlet selling alcohol, that's going to increase the number of people wanting to buy alcohol, bearing in mind that Spa already sell alcohol. Have you got any evidence to suggest that if you're going to double the number of shops, you're going to double the number of drinkers?
Well, I can't possibly have any evidence because the shop isn't there yet. Yes, but simply that just it's a normal thing. A shop is open until 10, so there is traffic to visit the shops until 10. If there is another shop open until 11, as I found out after I had written the objection, then naturally there is more traffic and more of the noise or disruptions or anything expected until 11. So that's natural, isn't it?
But could you accept the case that if you've got two shops selling alcohol, you're not necessarily going to increase the number of drinkers, it just gives them more choice? So they may have already been buying alcohol from Spa, but now they've got a new shop on the block, you might want to try that, but still the number of drinkers is going to be round about the same. Have you got any evidence from any other locations that this has happened?
No, I haven't got any evidence. It is simply that our issue is more with what if there's another shop that is open until 11, whatever the shop is, there's simply more noise and there could be possibly more disruption. It is just something that any shop owner with their best intentions, once the shop is closed, nobody has any influence on what is happening outside anyway. We as residents have no influence on what's happening outside wherever we live. Anybody who lives anywhere, if there's a disruption, and if it was serious, one would naturally call the police. And I'm not saying that there will be more drinkers. I'm not saying that it's even likely there will be more drinkers. That's something I can't say. I'm not can't look into the future. It's just that there might be, just simply because there's another shop that is open until late, there could be more problems of the ones we are already seeing by the parade of shops. And it hasn't even, that's all I'm saying about this. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to ask some questions now that might help some of your fears, because I listened to your objection and I read it, and some of it is about the fear of the unknown. I'm going to draw your attention to the fact that the police didn't object to this, but because the applicant made some very firm commitments under the licensing objectives, not objections, but objectives. Now, do you know what the licensing objectives are?
Do you mean what the police has said about this?
No, there are licensing objectives, was why we give a license, why we don't let people just trade. And what I'm going to ask, it's a little bit out of line what would normally happen, but for your sake, because I don't think that all the objectors know what being licensed means, there are 4 objectives that have to be met by anybody holding a license. So our applicant here in front of us is demonstrating how they're going to uphold those objectives. So if I could ask the representative and the applicant to tell you what the objectives of the license are, would that might help the situation for us all to have a better understanding. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, Chair, and in relation, you've got to justify, not justify, but when you apply for a licence, you have to demonstrate how you are going to uphold the licensing objectives. That's crime and disorder, protecting children, making sure they don't cause any nuisance and keep people safe. And so when we speak to the police, that is what the police are making sure is going to happen. And the police, I don't know if you should have seen the conditions because they were in the bundle, but the police come along and their job is to make sure that the applicant is going to uphold the licensing objectives, and they do that by asking them to accept the conditions. The conditions are comprehensive. You can have this if you want. CCTV, I mean, it's a 5-point condition, it's the CCTV, it's that long. We've then accepted staff training that is not only at the point of employment, but it has to be at least every 6 months after that, so it's continuous training. Challenge 25, so that children can't obtain alcohol. It even goes into the types of ID that must be accepted. The refusals register, how it's got to be used, how often it's got to be signed. There's got to be all sorts of signage. It even deals with litter, and that the high-strength alcohol like spirits are behind the counter. That becomes law. It's non-negotiable. And the significant thing is that the police will go in, they're not should, but will go in and check. So when they do a licensing visit, as I said, he'd had a licensing visit in Croydon recently, the police officer will go through every condition in detail and they'll make sure that he's complying with it. So the police have already undertaken that process to make sure that the licensing objectives are upheld, and THEPAN is quite happy to accept those because they do reflect his good practice. But like I said before, you know, that will form part of the licence, but he can go over and above that anyway. He can, if he's a responsible operator, which he is, he can say, well, also I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and run his business even more responsibly in addition to that. So yeah, I think that is perhaps what you were after, Chair.
Thanks very much. Yeah, you probably did see in the paperwork that the 4 objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, which we know from your objection you are concerned about with antisocial behaviour and various other things. Public safety, that is hugely a big thing that the police are worried about, and we as a licensing authority have to take all these 4 into consideration when we consideration of any licence, not just this one. And the other one is the prevention of public nuisance, whereby, as you rightly say, people on the street are not in a position, as a normal citizen normally, to prevent public nuisance. They can, if you know, if they say to somebody, you know, please don't do that or whatever, but the prevention of public nuisance is part of the licensing conditions. So CCTV and please leave quietly, respect our neighbours signs, all this sort of stuff is part of a licensing condition. You'll see it on many licensed premises. And the protection of children from harm. And we've heard from the applicant's representative that they are keen to make sure with the Challenge 25, with certain things. I'm just bringing out the details here. I'm not actually adding anything to what's already been said. So for the avoidance of doubt, not predetermined anything here. This is just to make sure that you understand that those 4 licensing objectives are what we are charged with being satisfied that any application in front of us will meet. Thank you.
May I say something about that? Thank you. I read all the information in the pack, and of course I have no doubt that you as the license applicant have got your best intentions. You are obviously a very competent business owner, and I have no doubt about it in any way that everything is also the police has agreed with businesses like that. Everything is absolutely in the right procedure. I fully understand that. However, my concern is that once a shop closes, whether it's the spa or whether it's a possible other shop, convenience store, then business owners have no influence anymore on what's happening there anyway. And the other issue is that we all know that policing in England has gone down, and according to numbers of policing have gone down, so the police find it harder to respond to anything that happens anywhere in England. And in the past it has taken sometimes a long time to get people to an area where something was happening. Anyway, I have no doubt that the best intention and all the right procedures is in place. However, I still, after everything I've heard, I still would like to uphold my personal objection, and that's nothing personal. Do you understand? Okay, thank you.
Has anybody got anything that they want to add further?
Please, Chair, if I may just really quickly, because obviously after hearing that, and on behalf of THEPAN, I do understand the fears and concerns. And I have to say, I didn't mention this to you, his priority is his community. He has brilliant relationships where all his shops are, but the key thing here is he wanted this particular location because it's close to his home. He travels a lot, or has done with all of his other shops, but he's from Maidstone, and he wanted this location because it's close to his home. So we will, to try and reassure you further, and I know that I can't do until it's open and, you know, the proof is in the pudding, but his priority will be to look after his community. And I have to say, a good operator is an asset, and the point was made quite rightly, there won't be an increase in people coming. It's just choice, so really nothing is going to change. People will just have a choice between, well, do they do better offers, or can I get my sandwich there or there? And that's essentially what will happen. A good operator makes things better, not worse, and I think you will find that. There are another set of eyes and ears for the difficulties that might go on in areas. You've got a well-run shop with responsible people, and they help. Apologies for labouring the point, but I do want to come back to the ABV suggestion and these single cans. You know, I do rely on the Thwaites' case, and that any restriction must be evidence-based, and restrictions mustn't be made just because it's desirable. And I know you've got the point already about the position of the police. They're your main experts and your main source of advice. But also SPA don't have any such restriction. It wouldn't be right or fair for something to be imposed on this retailer. There are no problems from the point of view of the guy who lives above. There's no suggestion that there's any need for any restriction to deal with them. So the other thing I want to just leave with, that, and this is for the benefit of the residents, you're quite right that you've no evidence because you can't, no one can get a crystal ball out. But licensing is a permissive system, and the default position is to grant and to not restrict. And the reason that that is the case is because you have the power to review this license if things go wrong. You can have THEPAM back in here within 6 weeks in front of this committee if anything was to go wrong. So if you do find that the licensing objectives are not being met and there's all of a sudden there's a problem, you can have him back in front of this committee and they can actually take the licence away. And that is why licensing is framed the way that it is. It's a case of let them have it because the power of review is really, really powerful. You've always got it, and you've heard as well about the layers of supervision. It's not just the police, but it's the committees and it's the licensing officer and the council. They're all looking on retailers and making sure that they act responsibly. So I hope that reassures you. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think that everybody's had a chance to add anything they wish to. So if everybody could leave the room now in order that we can make and reach a decision, and we'll call back the applicant and the objectors if they wish to come in. Thank you, everybody. Just to give you the decision, want you to know that we've considered the oral and written submissions and representations from both sides, and we are satisfied that the application meets all 4 conditions of the licensing objectives as set out in the application, and including the conditions agreed with the police. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council.